When I was in year 11 and 12, I took the electives. For my electives, I took chemistry, physics, biology, and maths. It was hard work. Advanced maths was very hard work. I liked maths, but it was a lot of hard work. And I often say to myself, goodness, had I known I was going to become a priest, I would have not taken such hard subjects, taken some easier ones, and had a bit of fun as well, instead of studying all the time. I'm not a highly academic person, so I've got to work very hard for whatever I'm working at. And only today, after all these years, I was reading about St. John Leonardi, and I realized, well, maths came in handy. Not because I can keep figures and numbers, but because in maths you're always solving problems. And some problems you want to tear your hair out, which I have very little of at this moment, but the point was I was able to work through the problem to find a solution. And I think that has come in handy all these years. So often as the priest, people think it is my job to solve all the problems. And 99.99% of the time, people only bring me problems. Very rarely they come with a solution to the problem. And somehow I found myself over these years able to work through and find a solution to it. But only today, after reading St. John Leonardi's life, realizing, God brings us through life, and what we go through, we could use for the mission of the church. So St. John Leonardi was someone who was in a large family. He's one of the youngest of 7 children. His dad put him through a course that would help him be a pharmacist one day. And for 10 years he did the course, and he was ready to get the certificate to open up his own pharmacy, and then had much thought to follow the desire of his heart. And he wanted to become a priest. And he went about, after those 10 years, pursuing priesthood, studying, training for it, eventually was ordained a priest. And he lived his life with such great witness to God's love for all people. St. John said forcefully, humanity stands in extreme need of Christ because he is our measure. There is no area that cannot be touched by his power. There is no evil that cannot find a remedy in him, no problem that is not resolved in him. St. Leonardi believed that the medicine of God was Jesus Christ, the measure of all things. He was convinced that all human beings needed this medicine more than anything else. He, together with other priests, founded the Congregation of the Propagation of Faith. And every year we take up a collection for the propagation of faith. Now, he was one of those founders. And the whole point of that founding this congregation was to train priests, to send them out into the world where Catholicism was not strong. Very few Christians, but they sent out these priests to places where there were no archdioceses, no bishops, but just faithful people. And the priests were trained in Rome, and they were sent to bring the message of the gospel, to offer the sacraments to the people of God. And that's why every year we take up a collection and send it to the propagation of faith, so it can continue to work in the missionary areas in the world. And he was one of those founding fathers of this congregation. He himself believed that it was very important to catechize, to teach people the faith, to form them in the faith. And he worked on forming the faith of the young people. He said it was so important to teach them the true faith, because the faith is beautiful, and anyone who's taught the true faith will come to fall in love with it. And it's so true. You know, whenever we teach the faith in its fullness, it's hard to follow sometimes, but there within we have the desire to embrace it. And a good prayer life obtains for us the grace to live it. We so often don't hear the fullness of the faith. So often our teachings from the sanctuary, from the lectern, is all watered down. So often we come away feeling nice after a homily. Instead, you should be stirring within you, why is Father saying this today? Now, why is it attacking me? How can I change my life? If everyone left church very happy, then perhaps the gospel is not preached properly. Because when our faith is formed, when we're truly formed in the faith, we realize how far we are from Christ. In a world where we are living a very self-centered life, we need to learn to live a more Christ-centered life. Only then we will be able to be on mission to bring the faith to others. St. Leonardi did that very well. He worked all his life doing just that. And what was more beautiful to read about his life is during that time when he was doing this formation of the young, formation of the people in faith, there were other saints as well. Well, they didn't know there were saints at that time, but there were people like St. Philip Neri, there were people like Aloysius Gonzaga, and a few other saints at that time, Ignatius of Loyola, Charles Borromeo, and all these people of faith, they were only few in number, but they believed that it was important, with God's help, to live this in the midst of all this chaos and all this uncertainty. And because of such saints, you and I have got faith today. You and I are able to live this faith. So often we wonder, what can I do on my own? Well, perhaps if you can't do much on your own, do it with God. Because you and God, when you work together, that's a majority. And God has given you these gifts that only you can use for the spiritual growth of your family and the mission of the church. So it's important that we always stay with the Lord. Peter realized that full and well. In the boat, when he got this huge catch, he was overwhelmed. Humanly speaking, this is not possible, because they fished all night and caught nothing. But the moment Jesus entered that boat and he said to them, put out into the deep, and Peter followed Jesus' words, there was a huge catch. And because he was so overwhelmed, Peter said, Jesus, Lord, please leave me and go away. I'm not worthy to be in your presence. And Jesus said to Peter, Peter, now more than ever you need me for the task that I am entrusting to you. So it takes one person to be open to God's grace in their life to achieve great things. So be that one person. Be that person who's open to God's grace. With Jesus in your life, you can do great and wonderful things, and we have the testimony of the saints to tell us just that. Let us ask for the grace in this Eucharist to be open to the grace of God in our life. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.